This video is going to be a film study look at Ernest Jones' contributions to what I believe to be a significantly improved Seattle Seahawks defense in recent weeks since his acquisition from the Tennessee Titans. Seattle's defense just absolutely obliterated the Cardinals' run game on Sunday, holding them to 49 yards on 14 carries, including James Conner. I believe he came into the game with like 630 yards rushing, finished or ended it, left Seattle with 8 yards on 7 carries. Ernest Jones had 10 tackles on the day. Leonard Williams, clearly the story, the star of the day. But Jones, I think, has had a big impact since being traded to Seattle. He's got 47 tackles in 4 games with the Seahawks. Granted, they are only 2-2 in that time span, but I think they're playing a much better brand of defense, particularly against the run the last 3 weeks. They had been giving up 146 yards per game rushing before his arrival, and of course gave up 164 in the first game he played at home against the Buffalo Bills. Thereafter, the last 3 weeks, only allowing 82 yards rushing per game. I think there's clear improvement there. The film shows it. I've packaged my plays here to illustrate the things that I think Ernest Jones brings to the Seattle defense and does very well. This week, they're going to visit New York to take on the Jets. And look, the Jets are only averaging 87 rushing yards per game. That's a bad formula against a Mike Macdonald defense. If you can't run the ball against his defense, and I'm referencing my knowledge covering the Ravens from 2022 and 2023 when he came over or came back from Michigan, if you can't run the ball against his defense, you're going to struggle generally. In this video, I'm going to focus on Ernest Jones' reactions in pass coverage and basically his tackling ability in space. I think he can be considered an eraser when a quarterback breaks contain, scrambles outside, tries to make something happen, and or on underneath completions to running backs and tight ends. Number 2, the great tempo and pace that he plays with on run concepts, whether it's outside run, toss, or outside zone type stuff, or inside downhill concepts. He pretty much shows up not just in the correct gap, but at the correct time. And even at the NFL level, that's something that not every inside linebacker has. He's one of them. Jack Campbell for the Lions would be the other. And it's not just being in the correct gap to fit where the running back attacks based upon the scheme, but also at the correct moment, not committing too soon such that certain running backs, the great ones like a Derrick Henry, can see the linebacker hedge over too closely to a particular gap and then cut it back because the linebacker committed too soon. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. I think basically the better way to describe it that will be more succinct is he's really smart and fast at the same time. Let's get to the film. Generally try to spot shadow him before the play. And we're going to focus on his ability to tackle quarterbacks who have broken contain. You can see a pretty deep pass drop here. This is a 2nd and 19, so these guys are taking deeper drops. The 49ers are up 7-6. We're into the second quarter, week 11. Purdy is going to get out of here. And look, you've got 3 high-quality defenders converging. Devin Witherspoon, I believe that's Boye Mafe, and then Ernest Jones. Witherspoon and Mafe unable to finish the tackle. Look, it says a lot about Brock Purdy that he's able to kind of escape those guys. Ernest Jones finishes him off. I would call him an eraser at the second level because of his athleticism. And when you take him and put him next to or near a Devin Witherspoon, the athleticism of this defense in some cases is just off the charts. I think this is a huge improvement for this team. I believe I said so at the time. It certainly didn't work out in the first game against the Bills, the home loss, I think 31-10. Moving to week 12, Jones is generally lining up to the field. So he's the field side Mike backer in Mike Macdonald's defense. With the ball on the left hash like I just drew, he's going to be to the field, and Knight is going to be into the boundary. This is 2nd and 10 in the fourth quarter. Seattle is up 13-3, and you can see he's leveled off, kind of a short drop. Initially looked to this side, works back to the middle of the field because he saw Kyler Murray looking in that direction, but keeps his eyes on Murray, who eventually does break contain. And once again, it's Ernest Jones who makes the tackle. There's very few quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion, that are going to be able to get away from the pass rush that Seattle offers. I know they went through a stretch of not being able to get to the quarterback, not being able to finish, but they've got a lot of talent over there. But then on top of that, escape those guys and then get away from Ernest Jones, Devin Witherspoon if he's playing nickel. One more for good measure in terms of his pass drops. This is week 12. Against Arizona, they've gone 3 into the boundary, so 2 tight ends and 1 running back releasing into the boundary. Seattle played a base nickel defense against Arizona. So why is that something that I mentioned? 3 into the boundary. Because what happens when you've got a nickel defender and you want to stay in a too high safety structure with the ball on the left hash, the nickel defender is going to be lined up to the field, essentially 99% of the time. In a too high safety structure, you've also got your 2 safeties deep. So what this does conceptually is it forces someone to deal with the third guy to the boundary. So Tariq Woolen, outside corner. I'm not saying they're playing man here because they're clearly not. And then Knight, the boundary side inside linebacker, the third guy into the boundary in the running back against a nickel defense is going to cause problems if an outside linebacker or the Mike backer, in this case Ernest Jones, doesn't move over there, doesn't hedge to that side. It's a long yardage situation. 1st and 20, in fact. So Jones is comfortable with just leveling off at depth in his pass drop. Complete to Connor underneath. You can see Murray's gotten through his progression quickly, getting it out, and Jones and Knight make the tackle. He's a sure tackler. And not only that, he's got great range, in my opinion, against the pass and against the run. Finally, one more illustration of him against the pass from the Arizona game. Now, I don't think he's used as a blitzer very often, nor do I think he's incredibly effective so far in Seattle at it. I will add this, though. When he played for the Rams last year and they came to Baltimore, he was injured leading up to that game. So the 3 games I had film of their offense, he had not had much impact, and I didn't expect him to do so against the Ravens. Well, he showed up healthy, and he was very good as a blitzer. In fact, I believe he had a sack on Lamar Jackson. So this is a 3rd down, 3rd and 14, in fact, the first possession, and he's picking the guard. Also, he's making the running back commit. Normally in Mike McDonald's defense, as you get this pick, the defensive tackle is going to loop underneath. Seen it a ton. Justin Matabike, Michael Pierce, and others benefited from that scheme last year in Baltimore and were able to get increased sack production. Reed, for whatever reason, isn't looping underneath of this pick, but what it does is it forces the running back to commit, and then when Murray tries to scramble out of there, Knight is able to fold underneath and then make the tackle. In fact, he's credited with a sack. Generally going to talk about him as a run defender because I think that's where he's best, and that's the unique needs or the specific need that Seattle had in acquiring him. So the ball is on the right hash, and here is Ernest Jones. Also 42 is in the game. I don't pretend to know exactly who that is, to be honest with you, but in any case, it's a toss concept to the bottom side of our screen, the left-hand side of the 49ers offense. And just try to take note, I'll pause it, of the leverage that he has. Now, he's unblocked, all right, so making this tackle on McCaffrey. But he never ends up too far over the top, nor does he end up too far behind, such that he's matching or the pace and or the tempo of the running back. I think that this is a extremely experienced, athletic, and smart inside linebacker. I would almost be concerned at this point that he might play too well to finish the season in Seattle and in some ways price himself out. I don't know if anyone's brought that up yet to Seattle fans. I certainly don't mean to be a downer on what at this point has got to be an exciting week for you guys going to New York to take on a Jets team. Yes, they do have Aaron Rodgers and some talented wide receivers. They also turn the football over some, number one. Number two, they're not very good at running the football. If you can make them one-dimensional, I think Mike McDonald will put them into the grinder. Check out, this is the same play from the end zone angle. Check out the matching of the tempo and then finishing off McCaffrey for a 1-yard gain. It's not that he's not good on downhill concepts. In fact, he is. Additional to that, very good at taking on blockers. He's going to stick the center here. This is a second quarter run concept. 49ers are ahead 7-6 at this point. So McCaffrey's kind of bringing this back because you've got a wide receiver kind of inserting on the backside of the run concept. Jones is going to fit here, which is the right fit, number one, but really what I want to focus on is him sticking the center, long-arming with his left arm, and then being able to shed and get involved. It's only a 2-yard gain. Witherspoon is there as well. I think I'll give you the all-22 after this play. I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier in the video, the setup. Some linebackers occasionally will fit a little too soon and not be able to fold back underneath. And in essence, open up a run lane where there shouldn't be one. And Ernest Jones is not that guy. He, I think, has a great understanding of when to arrive in his gap or the gap that the running back is trying to attack. I do think there's something to be said about how Seattle was playing from a personnel standpoint out of their nickel defense. So you do have two tight ends on the field for Arizona. This is Hall at outside linebacker, 98. I think Roberson, forgive me for not knowing his complete last name, but he's a bigger, stronger, more stout defensive end type as opposed to the outside linebackers that Seattle has on their roster. Hall, Uchenna and Nwosu, who I know, at some point will return this season. Boye Mafe, even though he's really big and strong like Hall. This is a defensive end that it really, I think, makes this into a 3-3. So defensive end, D-tackle, 3-technique D-tackle, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, inside linebacker. Not a 3-3 stack. I'm very familiar with that defense, but a 3-3 from a personnel standpoint. Another example, if you ask me, of Jones being non-committal initially and waiting to fit the gap the running back goes to and be a supportive player. 98 is the guy, Robertson Harris, I just remember now, my apologies, who makes first contact. Jones is there as well. I think they both get credit for a tackle inside. It is a 4-yard gain for Connor. Back to the 49ers game. This is the all-22 of that play where I said he sticks the center. My apologies that it's in the wrong order. But he's got great eyes. And I thought that this angle of that play would give you an idea. So Jennings is moving across here. And even though the flow and the toss looks like it's coming to this side, Jones recognizes that he's going to have the running back possibly cutting back. And this is where he's sticking or long-arming the center, basically framing him up and then fold him back inside. And you get a great view here, obviously, of how Witherspoon, even at his size, 185, whatever he is able to get involved, quote, inside the box. In this case, defeating Deebo Samuel's attempted block and then fitting right there while Jones collapses in from the other side. They essentially triangulate McCaffrey, hold him to a 2-yard gain. Connor's going to be tackled for a loss. This is one of Leonard Williams' ridiculous plays. So Jones is not involved here from the standpoint of what he does. However, I do think it's interesting that Jones and Williams are talking right before Williams tightens up his alignment. I talked about this in a Leonard Williams film study video that I put out, I believe, on Monday. Check that out if you haven't done so already. I'll link it up in the description. But Leonard Williams gets underneath here, crashes into James Conner, and body slams him. He actually attempted to body slam Christian McCaffrey the week before as well. I think that Jones has something to do with this, basically, is the point that I'm trying to make. I think he notified Leonard Williams of what the play was, the scheme was that was coming, and that's why Williams changed his alignment, basically stepped down, and was able to defeat the attempted down block by the Arizona Cardinals left tackle. Here's the other one where Williams, and this goes along with what I said about Seattle changing their defensive structure. I would say this is a 3-3. So 3 down linemen, 1 OLB in the case of Hall to the field, 2 inside backers. Nickel defender is Witherspoon, and then your 2 corners and 2 safeties. So it's not a 3-3 stack, which is a defense that's been around for a while. I actually ran that defense in high school. This is a 3-3 from a personnel standpoint, which is different from a typical nickel defense that would have 2 OLBs, 2 interior D tackles. Basically, Leonard Williams is a bigger, stronger, thicker defensive end type, along with Robertson Harris. And in fact, on this particular play, a counter scheme, Williams is absolutely blowing it up, compressing down, and he's almost body slamming McCaffrey, like I said a couple of times already. I'll let you see it one more time from the all-22 and then the end zone angle. As it relates to Ernest Jones, yes, he's the second guy in contact. I think the boundary side runs are being restricted here by this 3-3 look. Jones is also defeating the block of the left tackle, Trent Williams. Trent Williams, obviously a really high-level offensive lineman, will give you the end zone angle of the same play. if you guys are interested as Seahawks fans, I'll go through the film and try to find more of this 3-3 alignment. And maybe other Seahawks content creators have talked about it enough already. If so, feel free to let me know in the comments section. But something I've noticed in the last 2 weeks more of, McDonald getting away from playing another OLB here into the boundary and essentially taking the OLB off the field in the case of Mafe or whoever else is out there, and leaving one single outside linebacker to the field, kicking your defensive front down to the boundary, basically an over front with a 3 technique to the field. Again, Jones framing up, sticking the left tackle, and then once he's punched him to the inside, able to evade. He's great at that, if you ask me. His block destruction might be one of the better skills that he has because of how quickly he does it. I wouldn't say he overwhelms offensive linemen. He almost seems to kind of finesse them and just use his agility while getting his hands out at the same time. I think he's a very unique inside linebacker, one of my favorite guys to watch. So a really cool concept that I've never seen before, and they don't fool Ernest Jones. This will be the last play that we look at. It's a fake counter scheme, a fake, essentially F counter, and it does hold Ernest Jones for a moment, but it doesn't do enough to get him away from the point of attack. Now, they are in their base defense here. So you've got an outside linebacker, Mafe, an outside linebacker, Hall, and they're matching the 21 personnel of the 49ers. On the snap, you've got zone blocking with all the offensive linemen to their left, the downside of our screen. The fullback and tight end are going away. So it almost looks like it could be F counter, whereby you have one puller to kick out and then another puller to wrap. The only thing is it doesn't fool Ernest Jones at all. Hopefully my screen doesn't get choppy when I do this. I'm going to run this back a couple of times so you guys can see him stepping. If it's choppy or there's a seam in the middle of the screen, I apologize. Perhaps I need to get a better laptop as my streamer. But he does step with those two because he sees them, but recognizes McCaffrey's not cutting it back here. And you'll get the end zone angle so you can confirm it. He's not cutting it back. He makes contact. Hankins does as well, the defensive tackle. I find that Seattle's defensive tackles in this front here seem to be playing better than they were earlier in the season. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I'm not smart enough to figure it out just yet. Again, this is the same play. We're in a base defense. First tight end, puller. Second tight end, well, fullback actually, presumably would be to wrap up. And Jones does see it, step with it initially, and then gets back to the front side. So I guess they almost got him, but I've never seen that before. I've never seen that with a fullback and a tight end lined up next to each other. Normally would see it with one of them in the backfield, maybe a fullback here, and or a guy on the midline stepping here as a fullback and then wrapping back in the other direction. But Ernest Jones is there to make the tackle. It's a 3-yard gain. I would consider that a successful play for Seattle's defense. Yes, the 49ers did end up with 131 yards rushing. I was able to go back Sunday night into Monday and watch a little bit more of the film from the 49ers game. I just didn't have time that week to really check it out. And I think Seattle's run defense was already showing improved quality, in my opinion. I think Ernest Jones is having an impact. You're more than welcome as a Seahawks fan to let me know if you think I'm overstating it. I tried to break it down into the parts of his game that I believe are having the biggest contribution for Seattle right now. 2 huge road games coming up at the Jets, at the Cardinals. If I got time this week during Thanksgiving, I'll try Thanksgiving break. I'll try to maybe put out a small preview about that. It would be enjoyable and fun for me to try to do. I haven't watched a ton of Jets film. Occasionally I've watched them live because unfortunately they've been on primetime football games so often this year, and it just hasn't worked out for them at all. I think Seattle can go in there and get a win. Clearly, you got to be able to continue to stop or slow down the run game. Ernest Jones is a big part of that, and then be sound against the pass, not let Aaron Rodgers make any of those ridiculous throws that he's been known to make over the course of his career. I appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number 1. Number 2, if you think other Seahawks fans would enjoy the film study that I created here, and also the plays that I used to package his skills, the pass coverage, athleticism, tackling ability in space, his propensity to tempo or pace the with the running back, basically match the running back's gear and make tackles while dealing with or navigating offensive linemen at the same time, and still being a tremendous run defender on downhill stuff off tackle that would be considered power run game. If you think other Seahawks fans would enjoy all of that, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.